Hello, welcome to the Talking Michigan Transportation Podcast. I'm Jeff Cranston. There's been a lot of discussion recently about how roads are built. This comes up every couple of years when we turn over legislators and we have new committees forming that have members that want to understand these things and delve into products and materials and all the things that go into road building. This becomes a especially hot topic when road funding is being discussed, and thankfully road funding is being discussed again right now. Proposals both from the governor and from some lawmakers, and a lot of conversation and negotiation going on, and that can only be a good thing. We hope that there's going to be some kind of long-term fix and some kind of funding solution. Some things are being shuffled. So I wanted to talk to Jason Gutting, who is the head of the Bureau of Field Services for MDOT, which oversees a lot of things, including construction, and talk to him about some of those questions and the myths about materials and whether Michigan does things in some drastically different way from other states. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Once again, I'm with Jason Gutting, who is the director of the Bureau of Field Services at MDOT. That pretty much means he oversees several units within that bureau, everything from construction, statewide construction, to statewide maintenance and safety and some other things. Jason, thank you for taking time to be here.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Jeff.
So I wanted to talk to you because it's that time of year, in the 2-year cycle, where various legislative committees and new lawmakers are trying to understand, making an earnest effort to get their brains around everything that goes into road building. And it seems like it might be simple on the surface, but it's not. There's a lot of complicated things. And first, I guess, to do a little bit of a reset, I think this is your second time on the podcast. I had you on when you were promoted to head up the Bureau. Talk a little bit, round out, I guess, what I said about the Bureau of Field Services and everything it does.
Yeah, you were exactly correct. Our two primary areas, like you mentioned, are statewide construction efforts and our system operations and management unit, which is in itself a big area that includes our intelligent transportation systems, traffic signals, maintenance operations, which really includes a lot of other things, rest areas, and the snowplow drivers that you see, the mowing operations that are contracted out. And then we also have in our bureau the research administration area, which is a fantastic area to ensure that we are staying on the cutting edge of research practices and investment in our pavements and materials in those processes. And then our fourth area is our safety and security area, which is focused on occupational safety as well as safety of our facilities, filming big bridges and safety at those large bridges and large facilities.
So one of the things we hear a lot, and it comes up every time that there's talks about funding, and we're thrilled that there is a serious discussion going on about a longer term road funding plan, but is about Michigan's roads fall apart faster than other states because we don't use the right materials, or we don't oversee contractors appropriately. You've heard all the litany of things. And my simple answer to that when people talk about it is, there are national standards. We have to follow things that the Federal Highway Administration puts down, and they might give some leeway in terms of flexibility because every state's different and soils are different and there are other variables. But overall, there are certain specifications and standards. So, talk about that. And I guess if Ohio or Indiana or any other state broke the code, of course, we would do whatever they do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And just to play on that real quick is there's a national association of the DOTs that we're a part of. There are regional associations of that same group that we're a part of. And we talk to all the other DOT experts. Now, while the United States has different geology makeups and weather makeups, it's still similar materials in every area. And we talk about best practices, et cetera. That same group, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, coordinates and puts out testing standards for materials that all states follow. The federal government has requirements that all states must follow as well. We coordinate with our division office, but we also talk to other states, like I mentioned previously. If there's a magic elixir or if there's something that's working well in one state, we share that across our forums and say, hey, this is working really well for us. It might work down in a Sun Belt area. It's a little more dynamic up with our states because of freeze thaw and the cold weather we see that a southern Florida may not see, or a New Mexico, et cetera. But there is an immense amount of coordination with monthly meetings and yearly conferences to coordinate things nationally to make sure that we're all utilizing the best practices, because the standards and the specifications that are put out are similar across the nation.
So talk a little bit more about the materials and the research, and how you're always open when somebody comes up with an idea, which you get solicited often from people, with whether it's a different kind of aggregate or flexible concrete or those kinds of things, and why it's so difficult to implement something new like that, and why the testing takes time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. We have a very thorough new materials process that we've engaged over the years to make sure that we're transparent. It is posted on our website. It's a process to follow. There's a form to fill out so we know where to vet things. We are trying to ensure that we are using taxpayer money efficiently and effectively. And as part of that, we like tried and true materials that have performed well over the years. We research the items that we've placed. We research new items that are coming up as suggestions from other areas to ensure that we're going to have long-term performance. The challenge with that is long-term performance and research for that takes time. So if someone comes up with a new process or a new material or some other building technique, we want to make sure that that is thoroughly vetted for application down the road, because we design our pavements for 20 years and we want to make sure that this process is going to last that whole period of time. So we need to pilot it. We need to monitor performance. We need to report on that. We need to coordinate with other areas, other states, to make sure that the performance is what we expect in the short term, and that predictive analysis is there for long-term performance of those materials as well.
And what goes into that? I mean, somebody shows up and says, we got this thing, and my memory is that what's often the case is that they found something that might actually work on a less traveled, city street, like a subdivision street or a parking lot, but there's no way it's going to work on a state trunk line with the kind of traffic volumes and kind of weights it's dealing with.
Yeah, that's an important aspect. So when we get material submittals or we have dialogue, we do temper those discussions and say we need performance on something that's going to be on a closer caliber to the volumes that we have on trunk lines. Many cases, it's ideal if they've tried it on a local agency facility versus a parking lot or a private facility, just because the traffic volume is not there. And then we can pilot it on maybe a lower volume facility or something that's a little closer to a maintenance garage, so we can monitor it a little closer. And like I said, the scale of application is definitely controlled. I mean, we're not going to take a new thing and put it on, our highest volume interstates, I-75, 96, 94 right away. That's just wouldn't be appropriate management of our transportation facility. So we'll want to scale up as we're trying that product from a lower volume facility to a higher volume facility.
We will continue the conversation right after a quick break.
Even with the best planning, backups and traffic congestion can occur during road construction. This can pose hazardous situations for both motorists and construction workers, particularly when drivers are distracted. Motorists are more likely than workers to be killed or injured in work zone-related incidents. Additionally, the leading causes of all work zone-related crashes are distracted driving and speeding. So it's crucial to do your part in ensuring the safety of both drivers and focusing on your most important task, safe driving. Slow down and stay focused.
Something else that I think is sometimes misunderstood is the low bid process and why contractors are selected based on that. Could you talk about that?
Yes, and you are absolutely correct. The federal government requires low bid acquisition for contractors on our projects. We do have a best value process that has been used rarely for some unique project situations where there were considerations that need to come into play that we wanted to evaluate the contractors on other aspects other than cost. So cost was included in the best value. It's just not the sole factor in determining low bid. And low bid has worked well for us. It is actually obviously the most financially prudent for the taxpayers. We do have a life cycle cost analysis project, and part of that with our projects is we may have a project that is so close in pavement design that it's considered an alternate pavement bid project, which means both paving industries with their contractor partners will bid on that project, and the low bid will actually be whichever of the two paving materials has the lowest equivalent annual cost.
Yeah, tell me how that's calculated, the annual cost.
So we evaluate the projects and the bids from each of the contractors using the different materials. And what we take into account is the actual cost of the materials now, as well as a factor for the maintenance cost of those materials based on historic performance and maintenance costs that we have experienced. That's put into an equation. So there's multiple variables placed into this equation, which gives us this equivalent annual uniform cost, and whoever has the lowest of that value will be the successful bidder on those projects.
So what I've come to learn is that there are some very passionate advocates for concrete pavements and some very passionate advocates for asphalt pavements. I'm not asking you to take a side in this, but tell me the best arguments for both.
Both paving materials have their place and provide appropriate long-term durability for our roads in Michigan. Concrete pavements are historically very successful with high volume commercial traffic and the support they can provide. Asphalt industry is the same. With that, they can provide that same performance, but historically you'll see the cost because of maintenance cost and pavement cost. Concrete pavements will be the successful bidder in the high commercial traffic corridors of the state, as I had mentioned earlier, being I-75 and I-94 segments of the roadway. Asphalt has typically on some of the lower volume routes has had more successful bidding opportunities there just because of lower maintenance costs that's been experienced in the last several years. And those are very dynamic costs. So I definitely want to, because I'm assuming I'm going to get a lot of friend calls from this podcast from each of the industries telling me a few things, but obviously either industry does well. It'll depend on project location and how close they can have plants to the facilities. There are so many aspects that go into those bidding costs. And we've seen, on a project where we thought one industry was going to be the easily the successful candidate, the other industry came out and won that project for numerous reasons that we don't know. Better logistical path, chain, etc., location to the project site, another project that's adjacent, suppliers, etc. It is it is always very unique and is always very exciting to see who is winning those contracts because, like I said previously, it is for the advantage of all of us taxpayers in being efficient with that money.
Absolutely. I think that while the driving public sees trucks, various logos and things for the myriad contractors that do the road work around the state, they still aren't aware that the roads are built by private industry. Talk about oversight and what MDOT's role is on any of these projects.
Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. So MDOT doesn't have the forces to build and reconstruct these roadways. We do, as you mentioned, Jeff, contract out all those to private vendors, private contractors to do that work. And then we, as the owner agency of all the trunk line routes in the state, oversee that work per our procedures that are, approved by the FHWA, coordinated with the national standards, et cetera. So you'll see an MDOT individual or a consultant we may hire out on the facilities, monitoring the activities, recording information, materials, equipment that's being used, and then reporting pay items so we can reimburse the contractor for the work they complete. Our specific direct force individuals are focused on maintenance activities, which I had mentioned previously. It could be pothole patching repairs. We have concrete pavement repairs. They're kind of more of what I would define as a SWAT team to fix things that are immediate need that might be a little more reasonable for our staff. But once we get into even larger things, then they can handle. We contract all that work out.
So I know you've done a number of things at MDOT before you made your way to this position. So you know what it's like in the field. I think, there's some people under the perception that the contractors pretty much have carte blanche to do what they want on a project. Can you talk about what it's like to be an inspector overseeing it and day to day, making sure that they're following standards and procedures, but also, getting things done on time?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of pressure on those individuals. We have a lot of time commitments to local agencies and to the public to get things open. So there's a lot of pressure felt. There's a lot of fast-moving traffic in those work zones. That's the one thing I'd ask the listeners to focus on is just watch your speed and put away any distractions that may be in your vehicle when you're going through a work zone. We really appreciate that in the bigger picture for our safety and for your safety as well. But again, there is a lot of focus on those inspectors to ensure that the work being completed is in alignment with our required specifications. And, work that deviates from that is not completed. Extra work that the contractor might want to get paid for that we don't need is not incorporated. So they will focus intensely on ensuring that the work completed matches our details we have, matches the contract documents we have, our plan documents. There's numerous sources of information that an inspector has to check in the field at the same time the work is being performed. And that can be very intense while they're also engaging with the public that, maybe in a city reconstruct that has stopped and talked with them, or walking down, concrete barrier wall on a highway project while traffic is passing by at highway speeds right next to them. It can be an extremely an intense situation for those individuals.
Yeah, I think simulations, you've seen various public service announcements that some departments have done that portray you working at your desk in an office and having a car go by at 80 miles an hour. That really kind of drives the point home, what you're talking about.
It does.
So one other thing we talked a little bit about materials that go into the roads and the standards and the uniformity. You also get solicited for various, winter products, ice melting products, whether it's brine or, other agricultural products, similar things when it comes to testing and seeing if it can be done at scale. But can you talk a little bit about that and why it's just not as easy as it sounds?
Yes, that's another great aspect. There's a lot of discussion in our environment that trying to use byproducts of other processes in a commercially advantageous way, if not obviously a beneficial way. So we've been approached by farmers asking for byproducts. Can you use this byproduct to help melt ice or provide additional traction, et cetera? And those are evaluated in the same way a construction material is, obviously on a smaller scale, to ensure that it does work, a longer term performance. And then there's characteristics we have to evaluate, such as runoff. What is it going to do to the environment when it gets into the ditches or gets into closed sewer systems and runs down to wastewater treatment plants? And then we have to evaluate the cost. It might be reasonable on a very small scale, a single road, but when you talk about MDOT buying thousands of tons of product across the state through statewide contracts, it can be a substantial amount of money if something is several dollars more than the next available product. So all of those factors will come into play.
So that's good. Thanks for explaining that. One last question. I'd like to hear how different people answer this, different civil engineers especially. Why do bridges freeze before roads?
That's an interesting question because I see that sign. I just drove down south and back, and I saw the states and different signages for that bridge may ice earlier than roadway, watch for ice on bridge, etc. And the reason is the underside can stay cool as the top side will. So on a road, you have the geothermal warming that keeps that warmer than a bridge can, because a bridge is cold on each side of it. So there's no insulating qualities there that the road would have. So you're inherently going to get something that's a platform freezing faster than something that is attached to the earth, which takes a lot longer to cool and heat each season.
I think that's a good explanation. I think of it in terms of geothermal heating systems and why when you go, a couple feet below the surface, the ground, at least in Michigan, I think, is about 54 degrees year round.
Absolutely. So, yep.
Yeah.
My basement is a lot cooler in the summer. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jason. That's good. It's interesting. And I always appreciate talking to you about these things, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff.
I'd like to thank you once more for tuning in to Talking Michigan Transportation. You can find show notes and more on Apple Podcasts or Buzzsprout. I also want to acknowledge the talented people who help make this a reality each week, starting with Randy Debler, who skillfully edits the audio, Jesse Ball, who proofs the content, Courtney Bates, who posts the podcast to various platforms, and Jackie Salinas, who transcribes the audio to make it accessible to all.